really been like speaking publicly. But I am super honored to even be asked, and I'm very honored to be the voice for my babies, my individuals who have disabilities in my family, and also just the families that I serve. I take it very seriously. They are precious to me, and I just want to honor them. I want to do right by them, and I want to help people love them and to go for them, and it improves all of our lives when we do this and we enter into these maybe more difficult situations. So I'm Jeanette. I'm just a mom. I am married to Brad, who's the real champion of this weekend because he has our 4 boys all weekend. He's doing the school pickups, drop-offs, all the medical things that my kids need so that I can be here and that it's not wasted on me. He is a tremendous other half, and I wouldn't make it without him. So shout out to Brad. We have had 5 boys. We have 2 biological sons, and we were medical needs foster parents and adoptive parents. So that's how we came across our son, William. He came to us in 2016, 17. We knew that he had a life-limiting diagnosis. So we did know that he was terminally ill when we chose for him to come be a part of our family. And he did pass away in 2017 with parents and with people with him, which was amazing and just in time and in God's timing for him to have that. And we went on to adopt 2 other young boys who also, one had acquired a brain injury when he was 1. So he has pretty significant disabilities. He's nonverbal and non-ambulatory and requires a lot of care. Also came from trauma. And we adopted a baby who had been injured nearly to death at 1 month old and was projected to have significant disabilities. And praise the Lord, he does not, except that he has trauma and emotional challenges from where he comes from. But while we were in the process of adopting those 2, we were also finding out that our biological son has a genetic disorder and an autoimmune disorder, and also has significant disabilities. So for keeping count, we have 4. 3 of them are a little complex. We have a little bit of everything. It's a little wild. So again, shout out to Brad O'Hara. For this weekend, I'm a career physical therapist. I was a pediatric physical therapist and worked in psychiatric and pediatric settings before I had kids, before I knew I was going to have kids that had disabilities. So I was already in that world, enjoying working with families, all that. And in 2020, COVID was happening, things like that. I remember having a patient, and she was 19 years old. The mom, was 19 years old, and she had a baby, and he was in the NICU and had some problems and came home. She was really still frazzled from that being her first baby, that being her start. He came home on oxygen and came into me to see me for physical therapy, and I remember her just crying in our session and saying her mom didn't feel comfortable watching the baby because of the oxygen. She's scared, which is reasonable. But she said, I'm just so tired. I just want to go to the grocery store or take a nap or whatever. And I thought, I'm a physical therapist. I'm treating you, and I wish I could do it. I could watch that baby, like no problem. And then she could go to the grocery store. And I always was up against that. I think people like me that are in these healthcare fields, there's just such a limit to what you can do. You see the need, but you have your 1-hour session to do therapy. And so I was kind of like, my family needs me in a specific way. I can't always, my work schedule is crazy anyway, because honestly, I'm just having to be home a lot. I was piecing together a schedule anyway, and I thought if I pivoted and just, honestly, at the time I had heard Denny talk about Isaiah 58, and the way that she described her ministry was just being free to meet needs. Whatever needs come in that week, she prays over them and she tries to meet them. I was like, oh man, like that would be so exciting for me to be like, yes, I can meet that need. I can hold that baby. I can help you go to your doctor's appointment that you've put off for 2 years. I can do that. I have this skill set. I can do that for kids that have medical needs. I can do that for kids that have trauma. I can do that with my kids with me or not. And so Oklahoma is hurting for community-based services for people with disabilities. So I was like, my model is going to be to have a single family home. It's not my home, it's not their home, and I can customize it to provide respite care, which is just the medical word for babysitting or adult child sitting. That's what we do. They just call it respite care. There are virtually no providers, and if you don't have someone, or if you move here, I mean, we provide needs for caregivers who have medical issues themselves, emergencies. We had a lady have a heart attack, and she's a single mom. We were able to keep her son at home while she was in the hospital, so he wasn't placed in a facility not here or placed somewhere away from her. I've watched kids while the parents go have another kid, because you need childcare to go have a baby so that both of you can be there. All kinds of things. I love it. We're set up as a nonprofit so we can be free. We can accept money from the state, but we don't have to. A lot of people don't have that. So that's Will's house. That's what I do now. And I try to be an open book about my family, all these different situations I just told you, foster care, disability caregivers. But I wanted to clarify today that when I talk about disability today, I'm talking about the subculture that is family units impacted by disability. So I primarily am serving caregivers by serving their children well. But there's also, you've got siblings in there, you've got a whole family dynamic, and they're all different. It's foster parents, single dads, single moms, grandparents, all of that. So when I'm telling you and doing my call to action, I'm talking about loving. I'm not talking about special needs ministry or programming. I'm talking about loving families impacted by disability. And I could give you a ton of statistics, but I think we all know that that is a huge amount of people. I actually was just looking, and it was like on the care for just caregiving, it was 5.6 million caregivers caring for children with special health care needs in the U.S. It's way higher than that for adult caregivers caring for adults that are in their home. It said 86% are not receiving respite services, and they're not taking breaks. So an easy way to think of it is if you were a nurse and someone said, this is your patient, they have this ventilator, you need to watch these monitors during the night, gonna stay awake all night, gonna watch this patient. And then in the morning, when you think you're gonna be relieved from your shift, they say, now you have day shift, and also you're gonna do tonight again. And then you're gonna do day shift the next day, and there's no shift relief, right? And that doesn't make sense. And then they say, and you're also not being paid any money. And also you have other children. And also you have to find a way to make money to support your family. And also, when are you gonna have a social life? And also you have to order all the supplies for your kid. And also you just gotta call your insurance got cut off. And I mean, it just goes on and on. That's not a fun job. That's caregiving. The National Arch Respite is the national, they study all the different types of respite care that there are, and they try to, in the science world, they have to be evidence-based to gather all this research and things like that. And they found that a lot of people move into a season of caring for their parent as they're aging. And that type of caregiving, on average, lasts about 4 years. I have parents that come to me that have not left their child in 20 years with anyone. And that kind of caregiving takes a toll. And Denny was just at my Will's house, and I love Denny. She has so much urgency and so much love. And she was talking about isolation. She said, Jeanette, there are just people that are so isolated. They're gonna die like that. They're gonna die in there. And I mean, for me, these moms and these parents and how I feel myself, we're so isolated. And we're in fight or flight almost all the time. We are watching our children that we love so very much struggle. And it is, you might not even know they're in there, You might not even know that your neighbor hasn't come out because they're caring full time for somebody, or they just can't. They can't trust that their safety awareness. I have friends that can't even shower because it risks the safety of their child. Single parents, just all of that. So that's where I'm coming from. That's who I am, and I love. I want to make sure that all my statements are representing that individuals with disabilities have so much value. They're amazing, amazing, amazing individual people with gifts and abilities, and also simultaneously caregiving is hard. So it's both things. It's not that we sit around saying this is so hard. because of who they are. It's actually so much inner turmoil because this is your person that you love so very much, and you also need a break. So I just wanted to say that I have some a little warm up for you that I call empathy questions, and I take these from the people that call me, and I just want you to think about your family unit for a second, or how you raised your family, and just kind of open up your mind to this that I've already said. How do you deal with sleep deprivation? How would your family dynamic change if one spouse had to be awake all night for the safety of your child? What would you do if your child could not attend school safely? How would it affect your financial stability or your social life? How do you respond to violence? How many times can you handle being hit in the face while still maintaining your composure? And that one's for Chris, and he's not even in here. It's like he could take the hits. He could work with my population. What would you do if one of your children posed a threat to the security and safety of your other children? Which branch of the government or which healthcare provider would you contact if you needed help in that way? What would you do if you raised healthy children, became an empty nester, only to have your adult child sustain a brain injury, return home, and need full-time care? How do you deal with body fluids? Can you clean up after your child daily when they're 2, 10, 15, 25? What would your financial options be if you were caring for your child full-time and lost your spouse? How would your day-to-day life change if one of your children couldn't safely ride in your car, or go into a store, or go into a church? How well do you deal with screaming? Can you endure it for 1 hour, 5 hours, in the car? Who would you call if you needed to take a break from that specific behavior? How well can you sleep in a hospital chair? How many nights can you stay before asking for relief? And do you belong to a supportive community that would help you? So these are kind of things that I see on a regular basis, or people are calling me and saying, after COVID, I had a lot that said, I lost my spouse. To COVID, I have a lot of single dads who are raising kids with special needs that their wife knew everything about their services, about their therapies, about their care, and they're having to learn this for the first time. I get calls like this every week. So again, open book, love to talk to you all weekend, anytime about our story and our family. But I have 3 things I'm going to try to do quickly. Denny gave me extra time, which hopefully I won't need. But I wanted to say, Denny shared earlier about assumptions. And that's funny because I had titled mine 3 assumptions that the church body can't afford to be making about disability culture. And these are so deeply personal to me. I hope I can share them and do them justice. But number 1 assumption that the church body in general can't make about the disability population is that families impacted by disability will come to the church for help. If you're assuming that they can come to you, or that they will come to you, or that they can come to church services or programming, there's a lot of barriers to that. There's a lot of limitations. Just for instance, logistically, there are a lot of families, like I just mentioned, where they're staying up all night to monitor medical needs, and those families logistically cannot load up and come. There's families like mine where there's multiple types of needs. I can't just load up and go to something necessarily. Kind of depends on the day. Accessibility is still an issue in a lot of older churches. A lot of times my family would have to find out ahead of time if we can even get there, get in, what would it be like for us to be there. And also, just unfortunately, a lot of families that I talk to have given up on church or being a part of church communities based on rejection. And it's not only happening in church communities, it's that we face a lot of rejection during the week in almost every situation that we're going out. And for some reason, it feels a little harder, or maybe worse, when you put yourself out there for something like church and you're scared of that kind of rejection. Whether it's someone saying something, or a child being bullied, or just having a failure where behaviors were there and people are like, well, it's just not gonna work. Or one thing we hear a lot is we're not equipped to meet your needs. And those kind of things, there's a reason people say those things, and I understand. But when you face that kind of rejection, a lot of the families I've been with, they don't try anymore. So those are reasons why people are not coming. I wrote, being tolerated or being allowed to be somewhere feels different than being invited.
Wow.
And it feels very different for my children. I mean, everyone knows the mom hurt of watching your child be bullied, but and that hurts. Sometimes you lose sleep over that. That's hard when your child is going through that season. And I just want to let you know that happens almost daily in our lives. Someone making fun or someone not saying something very kind to our children, and it's hard to want to go out or to enter into social situations where you know it's going to take some failing. In the book, Same Lake, Different Boat, it's by Stephanie Hubach. She's kind of the authority on disability theology. It's amazing, amazing book and what churches can do to support families like mine. But there's a quote that says, "If a church is planted without the needs of people with disabilities in its DNA, it will be prone to function in ways that figuratively shut the door of the church, even if it does not do so intentionally." It's rough, guys. It's rough to read it, and it's rough to live it, but just want to be honest with you. A positive that I put in here, the National Arch Respite studies a lot of faith-based organizations that try to give respite to families, and they found that in general, churches and faith-based organizations are still very trusted. People trust that you're going to have background check personnel, that you're going to do training that is safe, but where they found breakdown was in completing family needs assessment. So like for me, that means asking what people need and then basing my programming off of that. So what they found was that churches were making programming without completing communication with families of what they actually need. So then, I mean, if you just think about what that leads to, you have programming that people aren't utilizing because that isn't what they actually needed. Sometimes what they need is you to go get an oil change in their car because they can't get their kids in the car to go get an oil change. Sometimes they need something different. So I find that to be helpful in that the church is still trusted, but we need to be listening to the individual needs. My second assumption is that the disability population is well taken care of and supported by systems. And I was kind of hoping for like a chuckle or a laugh there, because hopefully you understand that we are immersed in systems. We're in the healthcare system, the DHS child welfare system, the public school system, mental health, social security, disability, all the systems. And I think that it was Cody Brumley who spoke at Love Goes the last time, and he was saying, the churches have allowed systems to kind of take on the responsibility. We need to start taking back. And I think that the way that you do that, if you want to have your finger on the pulse of how systems are serving people with disabilities, instead of looking to media or social media or politicians, have relationships with families like mine and say, hey, what is it like? Like, how are you being served by these systems and what are the gaps? What is it like in a public school system to attend your IEP? What can we do to support you on those days? Or what can we do to advocate for you in these systems? Like what's happening here? And I really believe that these caregivers would tell you, and would say to you, okay, yeah, we get a little help here, but what we really need is this. And then you go from there and you fill those gaps. It's all about the listening. And also, there's still an overwhelming amount of discrimination and injustice, just purely injustice. And as I just described, from the workload of a caregiver or individuals with disabilities, we're limited in our fight. Disability population is the largest minority there is, and it's so diverse. You have all these different advocacy groups, you have all different types of disabilities, and we're still facing these injustices because we need help to fight. We need able-bodied population to fight more because we have these limitations, and we're busy taking care of our people. So justice is still an issue. Discrimination is still an issue. When I started Will's House, I faced a tremendous, whoa, jeez, okay. Power.
Power in the name of Jesus.
Is it back on? Hey, I'll just yell. I don't care. I'll yell in the dark. Good? Everybody good? Everybody's heart's good? Okay. Okay. Well, I feel a little nervous. It's good, right? It's okay, right? Okay. So injustice, discrimination. I started Will's House. I faced a lot of discrimination against having people with disabilities in a neighborhood, serving people with disabilities. I serve people in the town that I live in and that my children live in and go to school in, and the amount of discrimination was painful and unexpected in a lot of ways, even though I'm in this world. And I benefited significantly from people standing behind me and fighting for my family and fighting for the people that I serve. So please get involved. You don't have to have a disability to go to an advocacy type of meeting. You can go to those things. It's just the air, okay? Gosh, okay. Here's a quote, another quote. This is by Tim Keller. When contemplating the question, how do we help, the essential issue is, can the church only get involved in mercy, or must it get involved in justice? Keller says, the trouble with the word justice is it sounds like, and it is, changing social systems. We can't only do mercy, we're going to have to do justice. You're going to find over and over again that individuals are embedded in systems, and unless you do something about them, they're not going to get better. And justice involves the uncomfortable work of confronting active or passive oppression, which is the holding down of one another. Amazing quote. Please fight. Please fight for us. If you see something that's even just basic, that seems off, or where people are not getting equity, please say something or ask how to get involved. The third one is that your body, meaning the church body, is complete without individuals with disabilities. That's an assumption we cannot afford to be making. Again, we just talked about, I could give you disability statistics, but if you look at these family units and how much of a subculture exists of families like mine, if that isn't represented in your church body or those believers that you're around, then your body's not complete. And I want to move past accepting people with disabilities and accessibility. Those are kind of like check those off, like accept people, make your buildings accessible. But like, what are your churches or organizations doing to create jobs for individuals with disabilities? Are there people with disabilities that work within your organization or your church? How are you discipling or evangelizing people who learn differently? Are you able to disciple someone that has special needs? Are you focusing on teaching and reaching people who learn differently or have different disabilities or cannot come? And then also, like I said in the video, spiritual giftings. My babies, they have struggles, but they are beautiful little souls. And they have gifts, they have challenges, but they have spiritual gifts that can be part of the body. I loved when Chris was talking about empowering the young men to go and get involved in ministry and work. And I thought, same here, same for us. You can utilize the spiritual giftings of individuals with disabilities. And it will require some movement and some going and some learning and some listening. But wouldn't that be beautiful to start focusing on individuals and who they are and who they could be and what their purpose is? I want you to think about a family like mine. Maybe while I'm talking, you're like, okay, I know this caregiver and I know this family, or I have someone in my family that has a disability. I'm going to read this verse to you. Tim read I think the first part, it's all the body verses. But I want you to hear it a little differently, thinking about this population. It's 1 Corinthians 12:21. The eye cannot say to the hand, I have no need of you, nor again the head to the feet, I have no need of you. On the contrary, the parts of the body that seem to be weaker are indispensable. And on those parts of the body that we think less honorable, we bestow the greater honor. And our unpresentable parts are treated with greater modesty, which our presentable parts do not require. But God has so composed the body, giving greater honor to the part that lacked it, that there may be no division in the body, but that the members may have the same care for one another. If one member suffers, all suffer together. If one member is honored, all rejoice together. It says the parts of the body that seem to be weaker are indispensable. And man, what it would mean to me as a mom, guys, if you saw my people that way. All right, sorry guys. So it seems, sometimes for us it seems to be that there's limitations to entering into our suffering. Like I just told you, the caregivers are struggling. We're struggling. It's a struggle every day. My son got up at 2 o'clock in the morning for this event, and that's a struggle every day. That's something that we are dealing with. So please think in your head about these assumptions, make changes. How can you go to this population? If they can't come to you, what are you doing to actively go? What are your ministries in your church doing to actually go? And my first thing that I wrote was intentionally be a friend. If you have friends that have children that have disabilities, or you want to walk, churches have life groups where you're raising your kids side by side. Match with a family, walk with a family. Even if you can't help watch their child, journey with them across life stages. Be there with